Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Hope you all are good and your families as well. May Allah keep us safe. Amen. Okay, today we'll discuss about the African literature and course code is ENGL 4117. I'm Shahzadi Samra. Historical background, first of all. Okay, African literature may have gained much of its popularity in the 1950s, but its history goes back thousands of years. So, first we'll discuss about its historical background, like the span of the African literature. It is considered or African literature may be classified into three distinctively and widely accepted categories. So the first one is the traditional oral literature of Africa. Second one is the literature written in indigenous African languages, and the third one is the literature written in European languages. These three these three eras are also divided on the basis of the condition of the Africa. The traditional or the oral literature, it was in the pre-colonial era. Then Africa, indigenous African, that is in the colonial era, and then comes the literature written in European languages, that is the post-colonial era. So I guess you are familiar with the colonization, the process of colonization or the concept of the colonization. So if not, let me tell you about it briefly, then we'll move on to the history of the African literature. Colonization, it is basically a process in which the Europeans, they came over to the rest of the continents, okay, and they made colonies over there, and they came for the purpose of trade or for other things, but it was the apparent purpose. Apparently that was their purpose, but inwardly their purpose was to make colonies and to get possession over lands, over people, and to spread their own traditions, their own culture. So the whole process, it was quite painful for some nations, not for some nations, rather for every nation who went through this process of the colonization. It is the quite sorry, quite painful for those nations, and those nations suffered a lot, and still we are one of them, and still there are you may say the impacts of the colonization. For example, we speak English, Urdu, mixed languages, and we most often consider the English language the superior one, and it is also an international language. So and in fact in our outfits we get mixed things up, and these things show the colonization of minds and colonization of language. We have hybrid personalities. So this is a little bit about the colonization. If we start talking about it, it will then we'll be away from our original topic. So back to the span of the African literature, and I was telling you that it was divided into three categories, and the first category, traditional oral literature of Africa. It was the pre-colonial era, and it is considered that Africa is quite, it has rich civilization, other like more than as compared to any other nation. African civilization is rich because of its traditions, because of its customs. So Africa have almost 54 nations. Those nations make up Africa, and each of these separate countries, they have their own history, they have their own culture, their tribes, their tradition. So it is being said that there are some shared commonalities by the in the literature written by these different countries of the Africa. So they come as a whole, as in the form of the continent. uh, in particularly, like specifically definition of the African literature, that is quite difficult. So we cannot define literature in the, so we cannot define it, and whenever we talk about the African literature or the term African literature, it generally refers to a comprehensive, complex and creative literature of and from Africa. But different critics belonging to different schools of thought have provided either different interpretations about the term African literature. Like Chinua Achebe, he says that I don't see I don't see African literature as one unit, but as a group of associated units. In fact, the sum total of all nations and ethnic literatures of Africa. So it is the view of Chinua Achebe, who is an African or Nigerian writer, while the other authors, they say that there are some authors who believe that African literature can only be composed in African language. And there are quite a lot languages of Africa. I forgot the exact quantity, and I guess those are more than 800 dialects in the Africa. So you can look it up in the Google. So I'm not sure about it, the exact the figure of the dialects or the language, but they have quite a variety of dialects, because it has 54 nations. So some authors believe that the literature composed in African language, it should be composed, and that literature is considered the African literature. But others believe that African literature can be composed in any language, as long as it is composed by the authors from Africa. So we are narrowing down it to the narrowing the history of the African literature. First, the traditional, I was talking about it, traditional literature from the centuries. We know that from the beginning, when there wasn't anything to write, before the Middle Ages, there though in that time period, the literature that was in oral form. And when you have read the history of English literature, you might have read it as well, that there were the oral forms of literature. And so African literature also flourished in Africa in the form of the oral literature, and it is called orature. And particularly describe the term we use for this literature, that is the orature. And it flourished in Africa because of the absence of the literacy. And the oral literature, it is handed down from generations to generations through memorization and recitation. For example, when our grandmothers and our grandparents, they used to tell us stories. Okay, those stories, they might have heard it from their own parents, and their parents might have heard it from their own grandparents. And that is how the hierarchy goes on. So the forms they had about in the oral literature, that is the folk tale, myths, epics, funeral dirges, praise poems and proverbs. Next is the myths. I have given some of the elaboration of these forms, so that you may it will be a revision for you guys. First is the myths. Myths usually explain the interrelationships of all things that exist and provide for the group and its members a necessary sense of their place in relation to their environment and the forces that order events on earth. Myths, that is the things we consider or the things we name as myths, they made up by our ancestors. They are often the made up things by ancestors. There isn't any kind of you may say the real existence of those things, but those myths, they provide a sense of relationship, sense of belonging, so they keep on passing down from generation to generation. And then comes the epic. Myths have quite an important role in the African literature. As I told you that African literature is lit with the different traditions, customs, and these kinds of forms. That is why it is known as the civilization of Africa, known as the rich civilization. So the epics are elaborate literary forms usually performed only by experts on special occasions. They often recount the heroic exploits of ancestors. Epics, you all are familiar with the term epic. Epic is usually known as the long narrative poem. That narrative poem usually is performed on special occasion by any expert. And what it is about, it is about the heroic deeds most often. Heroic deeds that their ancestors have done. For example, in the English literature, the most common epic poem is the Beowulf, and I'm sure you have heard it. Then comes the funeral dirges. Funeral dirges, you may also call it elegy, like it is or funeral chanting, like the lamentation or mourning over the memory of mourning on the loss of the someone. So dirges chanted during funeral ceremonies lament the departed, praise his or her memory, and ask for his or her protection. So that is the funeral dirge. And if you have ever happened to watch any funeral of the Christians, they do sing some these kinds of, they do have these kind of dirges. Being a Muslim, we don't have, but they do have. And they do sing these dirges whenever there is a funeral ceremony. So next is praise poems. May have heard the word ode. Ode is ODE, ode. That is also a praise poem, actually. So praise poems, the forms they use, they didn't name it an elegy or the ode, because these terms were not present at that time. So they came after, years after, thousands of years after. So the praise poems are the epithets called out in reference to an object in celebration of its outstanding qualities and achievements. Like the you may might have heard name in the poetry, the Ode to Nightingale, Ode Graian. So those that ode means a praise poem. So Ode Graian means that someone is praising the Graian. Ode to Nightingale means someone is praising the nightingale. So that is exactly the praise poems in the African literature. Now come towards the proverbs. Proverbs are basically the short, witty, and ironic statement, metaphorical in its formulation, which aim to communicate a response to a particular situation or to offer advice or to be persuasive. We do use these English proverbs in our daily life or in our spoken, so you are familiar with it, and that is a rhetorical device actually. And in the African literature, they are replete with the proverbs of their own culture, and it is also a form of their oral tradition, oral literature. So next is, that is all about their oral literature. So next is the antecedents of African written literature. So now it means we are moving towards their written literature, and almost it has a region dating back thousands of years to ancient Egypt and hieroglyphs. Hieroglyphs is a writing, name of that writing, in which people used to present their stories by using pictures. Uses pictures to present words. Sorry. Might I guess you might have watched any kind of movie in which, or any kind of animated movie in which whenever they visit a cave, there are pictures carved or engraved pictures on the walls of the cave, on the stones. So it was basically that is how the written literature started. So it was basically hieroglyphs is that, and it is way too back. It is way too back than from the modern literature. So it was all thousands of years back to ancient Egypt and the hieroglyphs, and you can now imagine that how old it is, that if they used to draw pictures to present any kind of story. So you can imagine that how old, and how old it is. So these ancient Egyptians, the beginnings led to the Arabic poetry, which spread during the Arab conquest in 17th century before Common Era, and through Western Africa in 19th century. These African and Arabic culture, they continue to blend with the European culture and literature. That is how their written literature started. So first there was the ancient Egypt and the hieroglyphs, and second the ancient Egypt, the writing, the beginning of the writing, it led towards the Arabic poetry. And the reason for Arabic poetry, it came in 7th century, because the Arab came to Egypt and they conquered Egypt, and they brought with them Islam. So it was that period from 7th century to afterwards, that there was an emergence of Islam as well. I'll discuss it in the next slides. So then there was an amalgamation of African and Arabic culture into the European culture and their literature. So next, okay, that three waves of African literacy. Basically, it is also their origin, or their beginning of their written literature. First wave, it's about first wave in which the Ethiopia, where written works have been discovered that appeared before the earliest literatures in the Celtic and Germanic languages of Western Europe. So that is how their literacy started. And the second wave of literacy, it moved across the Africa with the emergence of Islam from 7th to 19th century, that I told you in the previous slide. And soon after the emergence of Islam in the 7th century, its believers, they established themselves in North Africa through a series of jihad or holy wars in the 11th and 12th century, and Islam was carried into the kingdom of Ghana. So the religion continued to move towards eastward through the 19th century. So it was moving on. So the third wave of literacy, In the third wave of literacy, they encountered Europe through trade relationships that I told you, the process of colonization, the era of colonization. So that is the era of colonization. The Europe through trade relationships, missionary activities, and colonialism propelled the third wave of literacy in Africa in 19th and 20th century, means modern era. So that is how they that is the journey of their literacy. Sorry, I thought I paused the slide, but I didn't. I was like talking about the 19th century, that how it like moved across the Africa. So in the 19th and 20th century, the literary activity in the British colonies was conducted almost entirely in vernacular languages like foreign languages. Literary activity, okay, the missionaries, they found it more useful to translate the Bible into the local languages instead of teaching Africans English. So they translated into their own local languages. That is how the idea of African written literature came into their minds, that how if they can do this, then we can also do this. Although it was there, but now that is when they had firm belief. So this resulted in the production of hymns, morality tales, other literature in African languages concerned with the propagating Christian values and morals. So the first of these Christian inspired African writings, they emerged in South Africa. And so move on to that, how they started it. Like the third, like the literature written in European languages, they used the European languages. Before I explain this, I would like to tell you that they have there are many African literary works that are available in native African languages, like those of Yoruba, Hausa in West Africa, Amharic, Somali, Swahili, then in East Africa, and Sotho and Zulu in Southern Africa. In these languages, we can find, these are native African languages, and we can find many African literary works in these languages. So, however, with one or two exceptions, most of the African literature is in European languages, especially English, French, and Portuguese. So, the written literature, they took the shape of novels, plays, and poems in 1950s and 1960s, and they have been described as the literatures of testimony. So why did they describe it as the literatures of testimony? Why do they call it a literature of testimony? Because these literatures, when they started writing in the African languages, or they adopted European languages, they were the beliefs of the Christianity there, because the colonization was going on. There was that was the era of colonization or colonialism. So obviously when the colonizers are the Europeans who came and who made colonies, and the colonized are those people who were converted and into the colonies. So, and I forgot what I was saying. Okay, they yeah, like they modified their literature in these forms, and the literature, the African authors who produced literature in European languages, those they are considered like they have described that literature as the literatures of revolt. You understand the word of the word revolt. Revolt is rising against someone or rising against anyone. So they considered, or the literature that was in European languages, they considered it the literature of the other, not the African ones, rather the non-Africans. They considered it the literatures of revolt. Like these texts, they move away from the project of depicting and reconstructing an African past, and focus on responding to and revolting against colonialism and corruption. So these literatures are more concerned with the present realities of African life, and often represent the past negatively. The writing during the post-colonial era, like between 1960 to 1970, is usually referred as the post-colonial literature. So the British, what they did, they annexed various parts across the length and breadth of the Africa, beginning from Egypt, and they ended towards the South Africa and the West Africa. So they took the various parts like Uganda, Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Zambia, Botswana, and many other parts of the Africa. So those literatures are also known as the Afro-European literatures because they are in the European languages. So in fact, the modern African writing arose out of the association between West and Africa, a contact which was both historical and experimental in dimension. Historical in the sense they have the relationship of the colonizer and the colonized, and experimental in the sense because because they were having a kind of relationship, and they both can't have a relationship, because one was they considered as the ruler, the cruel ruler, and one was the oppressor, and second was the oppressed. So they can't have relationship, but they had a relationship because one cannot exist without the other. So that is a bit of the about their the journey from their oral to written in African native languages, sorry, and then in the European literature. So we were talking about their journey. As I had told you about the post-colonial literature, the literature that was written in that era, known as the post-colonial literature, and thus they like in this era, many African nations, they gained political independence from their colonial rulers, and a considerable volume of African written literature in English was authored during these post-colonial times. As I told you, the writing during that was told earlier that many works, African literary works, were written in that period. So thus the post-colonial African literature is a mode to comprehend the African psyche, the physical and the other parameters of African life. Like it symbolizes the like post-colonial African literature. It symbolizes the African intellectual response to their experience of colonialism and neo-colonialism. In the rich traditions of African continent, the trials or the tribulations of the contemporary African life, induced by socio-political and economic experience of colonialism, and its agonizing, like its harsh or extreme neo-colonial aftermath permeates in the literary African text. So African imagination and the creativity have also been given detailed detailed expression in the African literary texts. So before I move on to the literary giants, African literary giants, I would like you to describe a term, negritude. Negritude is a term, and in fact is a movement that the black people they started. Negro, you may have heard the term Negro. Negro is quite like a harsh term, and when they didn't have the African people, they didn't have their independence, they were named as, or they were called with the term Negro, means slave or black man. They were not given a respect earlier. So that is that like although Africans they were writing in Portuguese in the 1850s, and a few volumes of African writing in English and French had been published, but there was still an explosion of African writing in the European languages occurred in mid 20th century. So that is the 1950s to 60s. In 1930s, black intellectuals from French colonies living in Paris initiated a literary movement. So that was the time when they had their independence. So that was they started a literary movement called Negritude to just demolish the term Negro. So negritude emerged out of a sudden grasp of racial identity and of cultural values, and an awareness of the wide discrepancies which existed between the promise of the French system of assimilation and the reality. So they what they did, they just adopted, or they just made the term Negro of their own term, like they just started the movement Negritude, and they owned the term Negro, and they didn't feel, later on they didn't feel any shame in that term. They just converted into something positive. The movement's founder looked to the Africa to rediscover and rehabilitate the African values that had been raised by the French cultural superiority. Negritude, the reason they wrote in these languages, because these nations they made colonies in the Africa, and that is why they were resisting against those. The Negritude writers they wrote poetry in French, in which they presented African traditions and cultures as antithetical but equal to European culture. So that is the bit of the intro, or you may say description of the Negritude. uh, I forgot what I was about to say. Okay, the reason uh, that why they were after the Africa means they were fighting nations, they were fighting against each other, and they were trying to overtake the as much area of Africa as possible, because of the presence of ivory in Africa, the jewels and the jewels and wealth, and Africa, that is the land as well. So that was the reason that every nation wanted to overtake the African land. So moving on to the African literary giants. African literary giants. Volsenka. Oh, sorry, I just misspelled it. It is Volsenka, Askia, Ugiwa Deong, Chinua Achebe. These writers, you can say that they have an African ancestry, and they are committed to restore faith of people in themselves and society, and that is the decolonizing the mind. They were trying to decolonize the mind of the people, of the African people. Decolonizing the mind is basically, as I told you, they were not these writers, they were not only trying to decolonize the minds of the African people, rather they were trying to decolonize the minds of the whole world. They were trying to they were searching the positive perspective of the Africans, because the colonizers, they just misrepresented Africa so much, not only the Africa but other nations as well. They just there are many stereotypes, and they just presented them as the uncivilized and barbarians, and nation without religion. They use the word without or dark nation. So such kind of terms, those were being used for the African people. So they were these literary giants, they were trying to just erase that thing. They were just trying to, they were justifying their culture, they were justifying their traditions and their civilization. And it is the search or research for the positive in positive African ideas, perspective, techniques and values. And these writers, their writings helped in familiarizing the African consciousness in the Europe and America. So they started some kinds of campaigns or movements to give awareness to English people and Americans and Europeans, that what exactly African nation is. That is why they kept on writing African literature, and they wrote African literature in the African languages and as well as the English language, because the people of both, or people of any language, can understand, their own people can understand that literature, and the non-Africans can also understand that literature. So that's why they translated their literature into other languages as well. So that is why and in our course we will study Chinua Achebe and Wole Soyinka, I guess, and there is one more like Ben Okri. These they worked a lot for the re-establishment of the African literature. Uh, and one important touchstone in post-colonial African literature was achieved when Wole Soyinka received a Nobel Prize in Literature from Africa. So, it represented the West acknowledgement of Nigerian society when he received the Nobel Prize, and they just thought that Nigerian literary, they are extraordinary. African literature also received momentum when a series on African writers were published by Heinemann Publishers. So when they published the series, so they were also acknowledged. English African literature is now well recognized, and African works like Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, that is a classic, is approved in the syllabus of universities in the West as well. So we will discuss about Chinua Achebe and further in the next lecture. So now we will move on to the themes of the African literature, that what exactly they are representing in their literature. First is the colonialism. That colonialism is the theme of every African literature, I guess, every. So that is the major theme of the theme of this literature. And I have already told you about the colonialism, that what is the colonialism. Then comes the subjugation. Subjugation, it is the subjugation of many things, not only the subjugation of people. Rather, it was the subjugation of people, It was the subjugation of language, it was the subjugation of women, and the subjugation of man, subjugation of like sorry, I forgot. So they were just they were those people, they're subjugating many things at a time. On one hand, the colonizers, they were subjugating the African people and their traditions and their identity, language. On the other hand, African people, they themselves also oppressing or the subjugating their own people. So it was going on both ends. Nationalism is the theme. Chinua Achebe, he says that I have never seen a nation more united than the Africans. So he said that African is the one nation that can be called a nation in the particular or in the exact definition of the nationalism. And I have never seen such unity in any other nation. So there is a sense of nationalism, there is a sense of patriotism in the African literature, in the African people as well. There the cultural conflict, there was the Western culture, there was the African culture. So both were in conflict with each other, both were trying to dominate. The Western culture, it was trying to now dominate the African culture, and African culture, it was trying to defend itself from getting dominated. So there was a conflict, and it is also present in their work. Then comes the alienation. Alienation, also you may say the marginalization. So alienation is also present in the African literature. What they were doing, the colonizers, they were marginalizing the colonized people, and the colonized people, they were also marginalizing their own people who didn't have such repute in the society, who were not as strong as they should be. So everything, whether it was subjugation, whether it was marginalization, it was going on both hands. There is a gender biasness, like domination of man, and they have firm belief in the masculinity, in the manliness. So that was the man dominated society. So poverty, there is quite a lot poverty in the Africa. So there is disillusionment when you just lose sense of belongingness, when you don't know that from which nation you belong exactly, and what is your exact language, and what is your identity. So this cause disillusionment. Exile and diaspora, that is also an important theme. It is present in their works. You would observe one thing when we'll study about these writers, African writers. You will observe that they spend some time in exile, and exile is used as punishment in their works. Whether the diaspora, that is something else. Diaspora is the forceful migration, like they were forced to migrate to other corners. The African people, they were forced, and they were they were made slaves, and there was a trade of slaves as well. So they were forced to move from one corner to the other corner of the world. That is the forceful migration of the people. They have this in their works as well, and the element of exile as well. These are the themes that you may find in any work of literature. So overall, the African, there are many others, but these are the important themes and the major themes that like African literature is related with. So I guess that is all for the lecture 1, and I would like you to read about Chinua Achebe, and his the things fall apart, the work will study. That is the next lecture will be on Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, and I would like you all to read it beforehand. So I guess that today's whole lecture, it was about the historical background of the African literature, how there was the oral literature, and how they gained literacy, what was the journey of the literacy and the written literature, and how they just resisted against the European and the French people and the English people. So that is all that we discussed today, and I hope you may have understand it well. So uh, that is for now. Thank you for listening and stay blessed.